Ladies and gentlemen, the Governor of the great state of Louisiana, the Honorable John Bel Edwards.
Thank you. Mr. President, Mr. Speaker, statewide elected officials, members of the legislature. It's a pleasure to be here with you this evening. Obviously, I wish the topic of conversation was a bit different. But before I get into that, I do want to thank Reverend Leo Cyrus for his prayer. I want to thank the National Guard Youth Challenge for doing such a wonderful job presenting the colors tonight. And I think you can see why I asked that Jake Cooley come down all the way from Benton, Louisiana to sing the national anthem tonight. Jake, thank you very much. Jake's CD is in my CD player, by the way. Look, I appreciate the opportunity to be here with you tonight. I do want to start by offering my apologies to you and to your spouses and significant others, because you may not be where you want to be or with who you want to be with come Valentine's Day. And I've been told that's the second year in a row. I'm sorry about that. I also want to take a moment of personal privilege and ask you to join me in congratulating someone who has been very special to the state of Louisiana in terms of his public service that goes back decades. He was in private business long before that. A veteran, served 16 years in the legislature. My good friend Ben Edwards is going to retire at the end of this month, and I, like many of you, have relied upon Ben, his friendship, his wisdom, his counsel. Many, many times here in the Capitol. So Ben, thank you for all that you've done for the people of Louisiana. Donna and I, and I'm sure all of us, wish you and Ann a very long, fulfilling, peaceful, and happy retirement. God bless you. Tonight we gather with a critical mission and a common purpose. Simply put, to stabilize the budget in a responsible way while adequately funding the programs and services the people of Louisiana consider to be priorities. As you all know, we are facing a $304 million shortfall for the current fiscal year that ends on June 30th. Just 4 months after the conclusion of this special session. And I brought you here because your input is necessary, and it's also necessary that we open up the entire budget to make the kind of budget adjustments that we need, including areas of the budget that are off limits without a special session, such as the legislature and the judiciary. Without you here, the cuts would be concentrated on a narrower spectrum of the budget and would be deeper and more painful than is necessary to close the gap. I want to start by talking a little bit about the fiscal year 17 budget and what it looks like before outlining what I believe is the best approach for solving this mid-year deficit. We're operating under a budget that started the fiscal year $326 million short of the funding needed to provide the same level of services to the people of Louisiana this year as we did last fiscal year. That is why the TOPS program was, unfortunately, cut by $90 million, despite my plan to fully fund it, in addition to cuts to higher education, corrections, and a host of other agencies and departments, including the executive department, the judiciary, and the legislature. It's an honest budget that was crafted without the use of one-time money, contains no fund sweeps. There were no contingent appropriations because of my veto of one, or any other gimmicks in that budget. No increases for inflation or merit pay raises were built into the budget either. Unfortunately, we're here tonight because revenue has lagged the forecast upon which the budget was based. Our mission over the course of this special session is to minimize the burden we place on Louisiana's families while funding the priorities that you all outlined in the budget you passed last year and that I signed into law. There are no easy options, and that's why Commissioner Jay Darden and I have spent hours upon hours combing through every line of the state budget. We have purposely taken a deliberative and balanced approach to eliminate the shortfall, recognizing several factors. First, just 2 months ago in December, we made a $313 million worth of budget adjustments and cuts to close the state general fund shortfall for the fiscal year that ended last June. Second, and this is critically important, the historic August floods across South Louisiana left the state with $246 million in unbudgeted, unexpected, and unreimbursed expenses for this fiscal year, worsening a cash flow problem that already hampered many state agencies. These challenges, combined with the recent tornadoes, have made our work much more difficult. And I would like you to be also mindful of this. In just the last 12 months, 57 of our 64 parishes have received a major federal disaster declaration, and that represents 85% of the population of our state. So there's been no shortage of challenges over my first year as governor and over this past year with you in the legislature. There has been a shortage of money. After years of budget challenges, there simply are not easy options left. I've said this on numerous occasions. Every cut and every budget adjustment we make will have a direct impact on someone in this state, and we must be mindful of that. And while I wish we were on a more solid fiscal foundation, until we make the structural budget and tax reforms we all agree we need, our options are limited, and our problems are exacerbated by the fact that there are only 4 months left in the fiscal year after this special session adjourns. As you know, to solve this shortfall, I am not proposing to raise any taxes or any fees. I am proposing the use of 1/3 of the state's budget stabilization fund, also known as the rainy day fund, cuts of more than $60 million that will have to be absorbed in that 4-month period, and budget adjustments that use available state funds to replace state general fund. Now, I'm aware that there is some criticism of this approach. However, we should be mindful that the Budget Stabilization Fund was created for this very purpose. And in fact, before I took office, the state tapped this fund 4 times during the previous administration when our budget challenges were much less severe. And the $120 million that I seek to get from the rainy day fund actually accounts for less than 40% of the overall shortfall that we have to fix. You should all know that the Budget Stabilization Fund was created in 1990 so that we would have a savings account to stabilize our budget against precipitous revenue declines, especially when they occur mid-year. And it was specifically designed to fund critical priorities when mineral-related revenues decline, as it most surely has. Oil is just $26 a barrel at this time last year, compared to $110 a barrel in August of 2013, and oil traded right at $53 today. This is also why the Budget Stabilization Fund is funded in large part by excess mineral revenue that is realized in the good years. Additionally, you should know that $25 million will be deposited into the Budget Stabilization Fund later this fiscal year. Additionally, the state will begin to receive funds from the BP settlement stream related to reimbursement of 45% of state expenses. This will happen for 15 years, beginning in 2019, for a total of $360 million that will flow to the Budget Stabilization Fund. And this is in addition to any excess mineral revenue or other contributions that we choose to make. Simply put, not using the Budget Stabilization Fund, in my view, would be a mistake. Not using the Budget Stabilization Fund would inflict more pain upon Louisianans than is necessary or advisable. And I would say that under the circumstances as I have just related them, this is the most justified use of the rainy day fund in my decade of public service. Now, also under my plan, we are able to avoid cuts to higher education, K through 12 education, waivers, public safety, law enforcement, child abuse prevention, foster care, and very importantly, we would minimize the blow to our partner hospitals with whom we just finished renegotiating every single partnership agreement at considerable state general fund savings. However, that will not be the case if we do not make full use of the rainy day fund. And that's not fear-mongering or a scare tactic or an exaggeration. It's a reality that's amply demonstrated if you just look at the demonstration that we all saw a couple of weeks ago and the cuts that would be incurred to our most critical priorities, including health care and education. Now, I know the task is not easy, and this plan is not pleasant, not for you and not for me. We are trying to make the best decision of less than good options. But that does not absolve us of our responsibility to proceed wisely. When we meet here in April, I will again propose a transparent, honest, and responsible budget for the next fiscal year. We will have the opportunity to enact bold, long-term budget reforms that will lessen the frequency and severity of mid-year deficits that too often have produced destabilizing cuts to critical services and will prevent us from needing to use the Budget Stabilization Fund too frequently. We will have the opportunity to close the structural budget deficit for good, stabilize our state, and tackle long-term comprehensive tax reform, focusing on both revenue and on tax expenditures that are too costly and produce too little in return. This will give us the opportunity to invest in our children's future over time as we are able to do so. What I've seen over the course of these budget negotiations is a strong desire from all of you to make those reforms. I could not agree with you more, and I pledge to continue to be a partner with you, working with you in good faith in that critically important effort. But unfortunately, we are not there yet. We are not yet stable. The sun isn't yet shining. And so first, we've got to take care of the problem before us in a balanced and responsible way. So if there's another option out there, let's discuss it. Compromise is not a bad thing. It is not a dirty word for me, but it is counterproductive to our shared mission to constantly criticize and oppose without offering a viable alternative. If collectively you prefer more mid-year cuts than I have proposed, propose the specific cuts and vote on them. But please don't resort to budget gimmicks. Propose your cuts honestly and transparently, subject them to debate, Let's hear what our constituents and stakeholders have to say about the proposals. After all, that is why we're here, and that's why we serve. Before I go, let me remind you about how far we've come since last year. When I stood here at the start of our first special session in 2016, we were talking about a $3 billion shortfall for the previous and the current fiscal years. Thanks to the hard work of so many of you, we avoided catastrophe. Through bold and courageous action, we, to a very large degree, stabilized our state with a balanced mixture of revenue, cuts, and savings. And that process wasn't easy either, but it was necessary. Have no doubt, we are creating a better, a stronger Louisiana. And while there's still a lot of work to be done, we can look back on the last year with the satisfaction of knowing that we've begun the process of rebuilding our great state. Let's not take a step backwards. Instead, let us work in this special session together for the common good, just as Reverend Cyrus prayed. And I pledge to be a partner with all of you and begin this special session with an open mind. And we have just 10 days. So I say to you, and I say it again, let us be Louisianans first, not Democrats, not Republicans. Let us put Louisiana first, not rigid partisanship or political self-interest. If there is one thing that I hope you've learned from me over this past year, it is that my door is open. I am accessible. I will engage with you. I will compromise with you. And I want you to know I remain bullish on the future of Louisiana. I have never been more optimistic about our state and our future than I am right now. But I am mindful of the challenges that we have. And so I'll just request that we get to work. God bless you all, and God bless the great state of Louisiana.